So what is NTLM? Windows have been a target for hackers since the beginning, and they keep building on older systems, allowing attackers to gain access through security gaps. In older Windows models, the OS used Windows' new technology LAN Manager, also known as NTLM authentication, to authenticate users. It is a protocol in Active Directory, which helps authenticate clients to different AD domain services. How does NTLM work? So how NTLM authentication works is by using the challenge response technique. The client sends a negotiation request, and the server will challenge the client with the logon challenge, which is a 16-byte random number. The client will add the hashed password onto the random number and encrypt it, then send it back. The server will do the same and see if it matches what the client sent. Security risk with NTLM. The risk with this method is that it uses a hash with no salt, so that same passwords will have the same hash. Attackers can use well-known hashing algorithms and get a rainbow table to figure out your password. It also does not support MFA, so once the attacker gets the password, there will be no extra way the device can authenticate you through SMS or email. Another attack that the NTLM falls prey to is relay attacks. An attacker can pretend to be the client and intercept the responses and forward them to the server. The attacker can then be authenticated instead of the client. Another problem is that NTLM only allows one-way authentication, where the server authenticates the client, but the client cannot authenticate the server, making it easy for the attackers to use man-in-the-middle attack. Windows has updated to allow Kerberos as a new authentication protocol. NTLM is still used if Kerberos fails, which allows backward compatibility for legacy applications or other system that still uses NTLM. These users still using older Windows models or using NTLM or legacy systems can still be at risk. Consequences from hack. Once they get access with valid credentials, they can create admin accounts on the victim's local network domain controller. They can also get NTLM password, hashes, authentication, certificates from domain controllers, meaning they have control over their network. Because of this, data and personal info can be lost, and lost of control.
This following penetration test will explain privilege escalation on a Windows machine. As we can see, user 1 has a password which is locked and it is an admin account. Now, if I restart my computer, I'll boot into my USB, which will reset the password using Laysoft software and potentially get into the user 1 and reset the password without knowing the password at all or logging into the system. This simple recovery tool can be used and applied as a password resetting tool. As we can see here, we are booting into the USB. The password recovery tool here will reset Windows passwords, which can be used for malicious privilege escalation, in this case, to reset administrator. As this can show a user with 0 privilege can access a device. The main scope of this is to run a program called mimikatz in privileged mode. The password has successfully been resetted. Now, if we reboot our system, it should automatically log into user 1, which was actually an administrator account. This can work on both user level and administrator level accounts. I will exit the USB and reset. The purposes of this penetration test is not just to use a USB tool, but to try to explore the different memory address, memory scraping, local system, subsystem authority on mimikatz to try to gain privilege and gain unauthorized access. As we can see here, user 1 no longer needs a password and can log in. This is not a very advanced or high-level attack. This is an attack that could be used for malicious purposes and is a very old, well-known attack. This would work primarily on Windows, which shows you can use penetration testing not on just an exploitable VM, but on a real live computer. Access the local security authority to try to create a forged ticket granting ticket server. While in this case, we will use live Windows 11 to try to access and use correct software as opposed to an exploitable box. So run it as administrator. Privilege : debug escalates privileges to the kernel level mode and uses memory. This program uses memory scraping to access the memory of the local security authority. Now we will do a command LSA dump to read the LSA/patch, which injects a patch to the local security authority. As we can see here, these are NTLM hashes encrypted in RC4. We can see our domain name. We can see the security identifier. We can see the RID. Now, this is also usable on a system where using a network drive. By no means is this limited to Windows Home. As we can see, user 1 does not have an NTLM hash because we actually had wiped this password to gain escalate privileges. However, the target in question is the user Suhaib. As we can extract this hash, now we can use this hash in order to try to use a separate software that has been deprecated for this type of Kerber roasting, but we will use hashcat instead. Now this is our hash. We'll set it to 1000, which results to NTLM, and we'll download it to a result.txt file, the actual hash, and decrypt this hash to find the password. As we can see, this didn't take too much time as we've already done this, and the result is in this txt, which shows the hash, and the password is mimikatz. Now, this is much more important than spoofing the ticket granting ticket server, but rather to find out the password is much more important step in this process, which is to double check that I am and to gain administrative access. As you can see here, I'm user 1 and Suhaib is the target that I'm targeting. As we'll use this SSH command using Suhaib, what we're able to do is access it. Now, SSH is not always open on remote servers, but RDP or TFTP, there's multiple different protocols you can use. As we learn, the password is mimikatz, and we will do who am I. And as we can see here, we're user Suhaib on user 1. This is to be able to remotely access a remote user and gain full administrative control. And